Okay, so the first part of the video series, Tropes vs. Women in Video Games, made by Anita Sarkeesian, focuses a lot on the franchises that Nintendo has released over the years. Whether it's their early ones that became staples, or ones they introduced later on to the video gaming community. Now, the one that I have the most issues that now the one that she mentioned that I have the most issues with is Dinosaur Planet. Dinosaur Planet was a game made by Rare to be released for the Nintendo 64 around 2000 to 2001. And she mentions the character Crystal, who was supposed to be the main protagonist. Now, this would mean that she would have all the main magical abilities, all the powers, be able to defeat all the enemies, and solve all the puzzles. And so she, in her own right, was the star of this game. Now, from her point of view, what had happened was that she was pushed out of the way and put into the damsel in distress trope in order to be an object of desire for Fox from the Star Fox series and to have some sort of male centered perspective for this game. This is simply not the case. What actually had happened was there was a second character named Saber who was male and who was supposed to be the brother of Crystal. And you were supposed to switch off between these two characters for gameplay in order to achieve the main goal, which was to find their father. So what had happened was that, and I apologize if I butchered this name, Shigeru Miyamoto had joked around the time that this game was being made that the character Saber had looked a lot like Fox McCloud from Star Fox. So towards the end of the development cycle of the game had been completely changed and overhauled in order to be a Star Fox entry for the franchise. And this included part of what is known for established franchises, where you would play as the main character of those titular franchises. In this case, it was Fox McCloud. Just like in most Mario games, you play as Mario. In Donkey Kong games, you play as Donkey Kong, and in the Legend of Zelda games, you play as Link. So the problem I had with this was that she altered this history a little bit in order to fit her argument and to provide some sort of analysis as to what had happened actually. This doesn't really go along with how games are made, and it doesn't really match what had actually happened. And I believe that this sort of technique can be used in other instances, in other situations, such as like college assignments or something, where the information and the research that is provided for whatever topic you'd like to talk about is sort of vague and somewhat out of place, so you can form your argument around what the information is given to you. In this case, Anita Sarkeesian had changed the history of the game in order to fit her analysis. And this just doesn't work for when you make videos on YouTube, because most people, when they see something that's very controversial, they want cold, hard facts, and that usually comes from the original history. And I had seen that another person on YouTube had mentioned this, that the history of Dinosaur Planet was completely changed in order to fit her argument. I don't remember the name, but I wish to give credit to her for pointing this out to me. The next issue that I had was she points it out throughout the entire throughout the entire video, and that is that over time, when we play these games that have these male-centered perspectives and putting women into weaker positions, such as a damsel in distress, that we sort of internalize it eventually, and that it becomes a part of us. I feel like that's an incorrect assumption because, for example, when we play violent video games, if we have some sort of a rival or adversary that comes into way, we sort of use violence as a way of getting around them and dealing with them. We don't usually have the option of talking to them or compromising with them in any sort of way. But in real life, we do that. We don't exactly just come up to them and randomly kill them. And it's that people can make that distinction that this is a game and this is what's allowed within this reality. And our own reality is there are a lot of things that are allowed, but there are a lot of things that are not allowed. And the fact that we can make this distinction shows that even within a video game setting, even how women are portrayed, that it doesn't transfer over into how we think about them in real life. Now, the next issue that I wanted to mention is that she says that the idea that women are weaker than men is a socially constructed one and that has never been biologically proven, when in fact it's quite the opposite. It has been proven that women are weaker than men, but see, here's the thing. Within arachnids, female spiders are much bigger and stronger than male spiders. So, humans, us, and spiders are all part of the animal kingdom. And no matter how we think about it socially, it does not change those facts any way that we want them to. But here's the thing that I wanted to mention. The socially constructed part is that because of these biological differences between men and women, that for some reason women should be considered less than men. And I don't believe this is true because women are just as much needed for reproduction, the thing that keeps us alive and keeps us going, and they're also needed to fulfill their roles in society. They should be they should be able to follow whatever roles they want to, whether it's a strong and independent one or it's the weak and can't do anything for themselves one. They're just as much a part of our society as we are, and we need them just as much as they need us. Now, the last issue that I wanted to mention was that she talks about how these characters that were in the damsel in distress trope should somehow become heroes themselves in their own right and have all the powers that the main protagonist always does. But the issue is that it pulls them out of their characterization and kind of puts them in some sort of other place. And it's not received well by audiences at all in any sort of way. This is kind of like how people don't stick to the source material and try to go outside of it to create something new, but it really doesn't respond well with the fans, and it's not really what anyone wants sometimes. And it's because, and an example of this would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the new movie that's coming out. When the ideas for this movie were originally being conceived, it was said that they were going to be aliens and that they would be from another planet, and that would be their origin story. Now, the fans of this franchise were very angry about that idea because it's completely outside of the norm of what they were expecting, and has nothing to do with the source material at all. And even one of the creators had said that if you do not stick to the source material, that the fans will be very angry with them. And so the director or the producer of this film, Michael Bay, said that even though we were trying to create something new, we always care about what the fans want. And that's sort of the idea with all these different franchises. So this idea can be applied to video games as well. A character cannot be taken out of its original characterization that's been established for so long and simply be put into the main protagonist position without it having some sort of like backlash or not being well received with the fans. Saying that though, there is a way that they can become these sort of heroes in their own right and have all the power. And that's when a situation presents itself within the game where they need to come out of that characterization. For example, the games Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario both showcase this phenomenon in full effect. Now, with Super Mario RPG, Princess Peach is taken once again as the damsel in distress and put into that characterization. Bowser kidnaps her, and Mario goes to save her. to show that it's sticking to the source material in some way or another. But once the main antagonist, Smithy, comes into play, both of these characters are taken out of their original characterizations and used for a greater cause. Now, to focus this argument a little bit more, Princess Peach is given the ability to attack, use items, use magic, and is pretty much just as useful as Mario is in the game. Now, with Paper Mario, she was kidnapped once again, but throughout the game, you switch off between Mario and Princess Peach to play different parts, and in certain ways, she either elaborates her own escape or tries to help the main character in some way or another. The thing about both of these games is that they were never mentioned by Anita Sarkeesian as a way where Princess Peach comes out of her shell of being the damsel in distress and actually tries to be more useful within the series. Now, with both of these games, the situation that is presented to them allows for some of the characters to be taken out of their original characterization and made to be more useful so that they can help towards a greater cause. But there are games where this doesn't happen at all, and the reaction from the fans is not as well received as it should be. And an example of this would be the Metroid series. Now, with the Metroid series, there is a female lead character named Samus Aran, who has all the abilities that a male protagonist would have. She has all the powers, is able to elaborate her own escape, she has a lot more abilities, and she's able to do almost anything that she wants to and does not take orders from anyone. But within the game called Metroid Other M, this sort of hard exterior of hers is completely taken apart for some reason or another, and the situation doesn't really call for it. She has to take orders from the Galactic Federation, she has to take orders from male superior officers, she can't use her powers unless someone tells her to, and she's seen crying and not being able to do everything that she is usually able to do in one of the scenes. And this was not well received at all by the fans. Many of us were probably very upset with how she was portrayed in this game, which is probably why the game did not sell as well as it should have. Now, with these examples, it shows that the situation has to present itself in such a way that the characters within certain characterizations can be taken out of it and then be used for a greater cause and be more useful to the storyline. And when it's not done like that, and it's just done randomly, like it was in Metroid Other M, it doesn't really the fans don't receive it well enough at all. And that's kind of the point, is that either games need to be created where these characters are allowed to be taken out of their characterizations so that they can become heroes themselves, or just new franchises need to be created in general. Now, with the second part of this video series, I'd like to talk about how newer video games are trying to become more sophisticated with story development and character development as well, and in order to intricately introduce why certain characters are made a certain way. Now, Sarkeesian mentions how women are portrayed in video games the same way as they were before, but she does not mention some of the characters that came afterwards at all in any sort of way, which is kind of surprising to me. So, without much further delay, let's get to the next part of the video.